Hello and welcome to Astro Hi-Fi. My name is Gabby Turner, but I know that you're not here for me. You're here to learn about Johnny Depp and his astrology. So I've been putting this video off for a while, but I've been wanting to make it for a while as well. And what inspired me to want to look at Johnny Depp's chart to begin with was a few months ago during his defamation trial. There was a video clip comparing him walking into court to Amber Heard walking into court.
Thank you.
And it showed him opening the door to his car, and there's this reggae music blasting, and he's got, I don't know, it looks like, I'll try to find the video and post it for you all, but he's just like smiling and like basking in the adoration of his fans who showed up to greet him as he enters court. And I was just thinking to myself, like, this looks like someone who's having a solar progression of some kind. It looks to me like there's something going on with his progressed sun, because Johnny Depp has always come across so differently from that. He is a very magnetic person, which makes sense, because as we can see here in his chart, he has Leo rising, and Leo risings just can't help but to be noticed and to be charismatic. But he also comes across as, he's not that type of celebrity who really craves the spotlight, or necessarily is someone who would bask in the spotlight in that way, or be that overtly magnanimous. I don't know if that's the right word, but I looked up his progressions. Now, the chart that we have here, it shows his natal chart, as well as the transits and progressions that were happening as of April 11th, which is when his defamation trial started. It's just a notable period of time in his life, so that's the date that I chose to look up those transits and progressions for. And you can see here, the green sun on the outside is his progressed sun, and it is just on his ascendant. It's actually just past it, so you can see progressed sun is at 14 degrees of Leo. His natal ascendant is at 12 Leo, so the solar progression has happened actually within the past 2 years. I'd have to go back and find the exact date, but the sun moves, I think, roughly 1 degree in a progression per year. So in any case, as long as his natal birth time is correct, this solar progression would have crossed his ascendant within the last couple of years, as he's been very much in the spotlight, and not necessarily in a positive way throughout all of that, right? It seems like he has sort of redeemed himself in the public eye in a big way, during the course of this particular defamation trial, but it hasn't all been very pretty for him along the way. But it is interesting because when the sun is moving through your 12th house, which is what it's been doing for the past many years, from here to here, as the sun progresses, and like I said, I think it's about 1 degree per year that a progression moves. So, for example, his natal sun is here in Gemini. So since he was born in 1963, like half of his life has been spent with his progressed sun moving through his natal 12th house. And the 12th house is a very hidden house, and that might seem surprising for someone who's a celebrity, but there are lots of very notable people who have even their natal sun in the 12th house. Hillary Clinton, Kanye West, our current U.S. President Joe Biden, they all have 12th house suns. Avril Lavigne is a famous musician who also has a 12th house natal sun. these are people who it's difficult for them to express themselves truly. I mean, their light can shine out in the world, and the 12th house will really, like, in some ways, like, glamorize or magnify their solar light. But it's almost as though that light isn't for them, and it's not necessarily the most clear or precise version of them either. So as Johnny Depp's sun has been moving through the 12th house, that may have been great for his movie career in terms of allowing him to take on different personas and different characters, and, you know, be able to project his energy out onto movie screens, because the 12th house can have that kind of effect of projecting a desirable image. And also, like, the 12th house is a place where everything merges. So it is a very imaginative house. It's the place where we experience both our dreams and our nightmares. It's the place that we go into, the place of fantasy, when we're getting lost in a book or getting lost in a movie or a TV series or a video game or anything like that. That's all 12th house stuff. So it makes sense for him that such a bulk of his movie career status happened when his sun was moving through the 12th house. And that sort of began to change when his sun moved into the first house. But the first house is, you know, sun moving into his progressed sun moving into the first house is a moment in his life when we're starting to see who the real Johnny Depp is. It's not as hidden. The true aspects of who he is are not quite as hidden as what they have been during this progression through the 12th house. So I hope that all makes sense. Also notice here, Venus is approaching the ascendant. I would have to look it up to see how many years it's going to be for Venus to actually get to the ascendant. But it is close enough to be a conjunction. Right now, progressed Venus is at 8 degrees Leo, so about 4 degrees away from his ascendant. So we can see in a handful of years from now, there will also be some really noticeable changes in his life, and maybe even more details about his love life, his social life, generally speaking, his money, who he is as a creative, especially because this is Venus in Leo. As that moves into his first house in a few years from now, we could just be learning more about Johnny Depp. So that's interesting. I also want to point out, you'll notice here his progressed midheaven and his progressed ascendant are both about to switch signs. And I actually looked this up. Let's go over here. So March 2nd, 2023, you'll notice, you see down here in the green lettering where my cursor is moving, the ascendant and the midheaven will both progress to a new sign at the same time. So that's very notable because they don't have to progress to a new sign at the exact same time. In his case, they are, and they're both moving to exactly the 0 degree. Midheaven which is our sort of like public image, public reputation, professional status, is moving into 0 degrees Cancer. So that's interesting. He started out natally with his midheaven in early Taurus. So it's progressed through Taurus, it's progressed all the way through Gemini, and then in March of next year, he'll progress to 0 degrees of Cancer in his midheaven. To me, that seems like we'll be seeing, again, something more about his home life, his family life. Cancer is just our most personal, most vulnerable emotions. So something about that will be projected out into the public in some way. There will be more a public awareness of who he is on a very personal level. His personal life will become even more public. If you thought it couldn't, well, I think it's going to. Also, his ascendant is moving from Virgo into Libra. So again, that seems more personal. Up until this point, the focus on him has been primarily his work, which relates to the sign of Virgo, but his progressed ascendant is going to be moving into Libra, and especially with progressed Venus, which is the ruler of Libra, uh, getting so close, it'll be at 9 degrees at this point, to his ascendant. Definitely there will be more focus on his personal life and probably his partnerships, which doesn't have to be just romantic partnerships. It could also refer to business partnerships and things like that. Probably all of the above, but yeah, I definitely think that more is going to come to light regarding his personal life. Also, in terms of transits next March 2023, the North Node will be transiting over his midheaven in Taurus. So again, something notable is going to be happening regarding his public image next year. We thought we were through, but I don't think so. But let's go back to 2022 and what the progressions were. So yeah, we notice, I mean, whenever you see anything at the 29th degree, it's still on that precipice. So even as of this year, with it being moving the midheaven and the ascendant, the progressed midheaven and ascendant at that 29th degree, it shows that he's on the verge of even greater change. Now, let's look where the North Node was transiting in April of 2022. It's up here in Taurus, and specifically at the 22nd degree. And if you notice, what does he have close to that degree? He has Venus and Mercury in Taurus in the 10th house. And the North Node was transiting that. So the North Node was bringing attention to his romantic life. Also, lots of his communications with Mercury, and specifically his hand. Mercury also relates to our hands. So all of this was being brought into the 10th house, which is the house of our public reputation, what's seen and known about us publicly. And this is also conjunct the fixed star Algol. And Algol is one of the most unfortunate fixed stars. One of the things that it relates to actually is violence, and so we know a lot of discussions about violence were definitely brought up during this defamation trial. So I created a chart showing when Uranus is actually going to reach the degree that his natal Mercury is at, 25 degrees of Taurus. That will be November 21st, 2024. And it'll be in end of April 2025 when Uranus reaches the natal degree of his Venus at 26 degrees Taurus, which again is the same degree as Caput Algol, the fixed star. And it's a very painful fixed star placement. So there could be, over the next couple of years, like I said, we already talked about his progressed midheaven and ascendant, but the next couple of years are going to be really life-changing for Johnny Depp. And this is happening in his 10th house, so these will be very public and very dramatic changes. Uranus is like a lightning bolt. Even before it reaches Mercury, it's going to be making a square to his natal Saturn, which again has to do with partnerships. So who knows what this will be, but there will be more tumultuous experiences coming up for Johnny Depp over the next couple of years for certain. All right. So I think that's in terms of like progressions and transits. Oh, okay, this is a notable one. Okay, so Johnny Depp also was having his second Saturn return. He doesn't seem like he should be old enough to be having his second Saturn return, but he is. He's getting up there in years, you know. He was born in 1963. So So yeah, you see this red Saturn image glyph right here on the outside. That's transiting Saturn. And as this court case, this defamation trial was beginning in April of 2022, transiting Saturn was at 22 degrees Aquarius. So just approaching his natal Saturn. And I mean, Saturn returns obviously are notorious for being difficult, trying times in our life. But the Saturn return also shows us that, you know, our degree of maturity will be reflected on in a sort of karmic sense around this time. But Saturn will bring obstacles and difficulties. And in particular, we see Saturn is in his 7th house, which is the house of partnerships. And it isn't just his, his marriage to Amber Heard. It wasn't just that it came to light how difficult of a relationship that was, but we also learned over the last couple of years during the trials that Johnny Depp's been involved in, that he's had some very difficult business relationships as well. That's something else that has come to light, that he has not gotten along very well. He's cut ties with certain people that he didn't feel were doing right by him. Those people didn't agree with his perspective, and they felt, sometimes that he was not very wise in the way that he used his money or approached certain things. But in any case, the Saturn return makes a lot of sense, because this was a very trying time in his life. It is also, again, like squaring that Mercury-Venus in the 10th house. So Saturn in the 7th, difficult relationships, squaring or bringing greater frustration or friction to his public image regarding his relationships, and also communication. Mercury, of course, has to do with communication, and of course lots of very private communications were exposed. Conversations, written and spoken conversations, brought to light during the course of this defamation trial. So this transit makes a lot of sense in terms of what happened or what's been happening in his life. And so I think that Johnny Depp, as an astrologer, it's interesting to look at his charts right now, because a lot of times with famous people, astrologers will look at famous charts to try to understand, what certain astrological placements mean in a sort of real life way, to give a sort of evidence, because a celebrity is someone who's known. But just because a celebrity is known in a sense, it doesn't mean we know who they really are. And of course, we still, after all this, don't necessarily know who Johnny Depp really is. But so much of his personal life has come to light at this point that it is interesting to see how his astrology corresponds to what we do know, or what has occurred in a very public sense. All right, just in terms of his natal placements, though, I also find it super interesting that he has Mars conjunct Uranus in his 1st house. Uranus is actually conjunct Regulus, which is a royal star. It brings a lot of prominence. And okay, so this is how I want to explain it. Mars conjunct Uranus is like boldly, assertively eccentric. I can't think of anything, honestly, that's more Mars and Aquarius in the 1st house than Edward Scissorhands. It's like, he's got these like dangerous, scissor hands, and he's not a mean guy, right? He's just like very quirky. He's like this alien type, very weird person. And so Johnny Depp, of course, in many of his roles is very known for that. But it's also just a part of who he is, not just the roles that he plays. So one of the stories about Johnny Depp, for example, is to exemplify this, like, I am just going to do what I want to do because I want to do it, no matter how weird or how strange it is the fact that he spent like I don't know, a couple million to $3 million. Uh, he wanted to catapult Hunter S. Thompson's ashes in some big, I don't know, I don't even know what it's called. One of those big things that like throws things. I don't know. But in any case, the first house is who we are, and it's how we present ourselves, and it's the aspect of ourselves that really it's pretty difficult to hide. You know, going back to his progressed sun moving into the first house, that's notable because we're seeing a greater truth of who he is. But natally, you know, he always has Mars conjunct Uranus in the first house. First house. So this is just, you know, it's who he is. He is someone who is going to have to just be kind of on the fringes in a way, going against the grain, being avant-garde, being rebellious. This is a very rebellious placement. And yeah, so that's what I'm seeing there. I also think it's notable that he has Neptune in his fourth house in Scorpio. Because it does feel to me, like based on what we've learned of his relationship with Amber Heard and also his relationship with his family members, that there is a lot of kind of like boundary crossing, I would think. You know, he talks about abuse from his mother. The fourth house often relates to the mother as well, and there is actually a sextile here between the moon also that relates to the mother and Neptune, where it's you know, people are not necessarily respecting boundaries, and with Neptune being in Scorpio, that can be in the sense of money, family inheritances. It can be in the sense of, you know, psychological, sexual. You know, there can just be kind of like not very firm boundaries in the home life, in the personal life, with Neptune placed there. Moon in sextile to Neptune can often give someone who is a very imaginative person, someone who is very artistic, and here his moon is in Capricorn in the sixth house. So moon in Capricorn in the sixth house, I would say generally I would expect that to be someone who finds a sense of emotional security through the work that they're doing. And someone who does care about creating major achievements for themselves and may not feel lovable unless they are achieving a lot through their hard work and efforts, probably more specifically through the work that they are doing. This is someone who is going to put a lot of effort into when they're employed by someone. You know, we think of Johnny Depp as a big movie star, but like he's been an employee of Disney, for example, you know, and these other big movie companies. Still an employee. And this is someone who takes that role very seriously. But the moon is also squaring Jupiter in Aries in the ninth house. Jupiter in Aries in the ninth house wants freedom. Jupiter in Aries in the ninth house says, I gotta be me, no matter the cost. So there is a frustration here. Anytime we see a square between planets, it's like their goals do not quite mesh. He does have this goal of, you know, I want to do a great job because I find my emotional security through my achievements and through perfecting myself in my skill set and being someone that people can rely on. That's where he finds his emotional security. But that doesn't mesh well with this other aspect of who he is, represented by Jupiter and Aries in the ninth, which says, I kind of need to be free, you know, like I need to be open, I need to be honest, I need to be direct, I need to be able to, you know, share my opinions and what I really think and feel about things. So I think that that is most. I mean, we could get into all of the placements here. Oh, I do want to mention this Mercury conjunct Venus in Taurus. Something that I noticed during the court trial is how slow Johnny Depp talks, and that's something that a lot of people noticed. Like he has a very meandering storytelling approach to how he speaks, to how he was even answering the questions on the stand. And I think that makes sense for Mercury and Taurus, because when Taurus starts something, it's a it's like when a big ship, it's hard to get a big ship moving, but then once it is moving, there's I don't know what the term is, like inertia, I guess. It's like once something is in motion, it stays in motion, but kind of slow and steady. That's the case for Mercury and Taurus. It's like once you get this person talking, they may not talk very quickly, but they will keep talking and talking and talking and talking, like once you get them started. Um, so that's interesting. Also conjunct Venus, Venus in its own sign of Taurus here. He does have a very enjoyable voice and almost a very poetic way of expressing himself, which makes a lot of sense with this placement. So I just wanted to point that out as well. So I think that's it. Now, I do also want to look into his synastry with Amber Heard and his synastry with Marilyn Manson, because he and Marilyn Manson have a very close friendship, and it's one that intrigues me. And so I kind of want to look at their synastry to understand that friendship a little bit more and like what it is that each of them brings into their lives. They're both obviously very eccentric individuals, so I'm sure that they relate to each other on that point. But there is an interesting quote that Johnny Depp gave in Rolling Stone magazine, which I'm going to post here for you to see. And I mean, it's obvious that they have a very close relationship, and I'm just curious about that. But of course, obviously, very curious to see what was going on with him and Amber Heard. They had what is quite obviously a very tumultuous relationship, and yet they stayed in it for a long time. So it will be interesting to look at their synastry. If you're not familiar with the term synastry, it just means we're taking one person's chart and we are looking at how another person's chart interacts with theirs. How do these two charts interact with each other? What will that tell us more about their relationship? And synastry is used a lot in romantic relationships. Unfortunately, not a lot of astrologers talk about synastry dynamics when it comes to friendships or family relationships. I wish there was more content like that out there, because we have synastry with anyone that we have any type of interpersonal connection with. Our charts are going to be interacting with the people that we interact with. And it is just interesting to see how that plays out. So we'll look at both of those. Those are bonus content, and that will be available to my Patreons at the Goddess of the Stars tier or above, or you can purchase that via Gumroad if you just want to look at that content and you're not interested in my Patreon. Those options will be listed below in the description box, so you can access that bonus content either through Patreon, which will include a lot of other content as well along with it. If you're interested in tarot, I have a lot of tarot content on my Patreon. But if you're not interested in all of that, you can just purchase the bonus video where I will talk about the synastry of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and the synastry of Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson. And in that bonus content video, you can purchase that via Gumroad. Right, so those are the two options, Patreon or Gumroad. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if there are other insights that you have noted in Johnny Depp's natal chart, transits, and or progressions that you'd like to point out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.